welcome to the Thursday, June 9th regular school committee meeting. We have just returned from executive session and we are ready for our public session to call to order. I would ask that those who are here with us that could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so the first item we have here is public comment. We do not have members of the public here in the audience, so I will move from there into recognitions. I know we have at least one recognition tonight.
Okay, well, I'm going to start
Oh,
with
yes.
our new school committee students, Robert Litcher and Anna Lind. I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourselves? And
Sure. My name's Robert Litcher, and I'm a junior right now. I'm about to be a senior. I'm in the student government for a class of 2023. I'm the class secretary, and I was good friends with Jesse, which is how I heard of this opportunity. But I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's a really cool opportunity.
well, we're looking forward to having you. And Anna?
Yes, I'm Anna Lindy, and I'm good friends with Robert, and that's how I heard about this opportunity. But I'm super excited because I think it's really cool to be like a student talking to the school committee, which I don't know too much about yet, so I'm really excited to do something like this.
Yeah, and along the way, we'll give you little tasks to do and
Yeah.
Sounds good.
come back and report to us. So welcome and thank you to committing to this. There are lots of Thursday nights that will be here in HCAM till the wee hours, and so thank you.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
thank you.
Thank you. So Anna, are you a junior too?
Yes, I am.
Well, we are
For another
excited to
couple
have you
weeks.
Yes.
on the home stretch.
Right?
Yep.
Yep. It's great to have you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
For the opportunity.
All right, thank you. You guys are welcome to stay if you'd like, or you can watch from home, or if you have homework and stuff you need to do as well, that's okay too.
This will be the last time we ever cut you loose.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it.
It's a
We'd love to
gorgeous
stay.
Great, that's great, thank you.
Very nice.
All right, so, and there is another recognition, I
We do.
believe.
We have another recognition. This is our farewell to Mrs. Parson, who's going off to be the superintendent of the Plainville Public Schools. Jen has been amazing for the last 4 years as the assistant superintendent in Hopkinton. She is a master grant writer. She's the right hand to all of our building principals. She's brought our literacy and all kinds of instruction so far forward. I know that many times at these meetings I'll sit and say that if you look at our third grade scores, 90% of our kids are reading at grade level or above. And I don't think that that happens in many places, hardly anywhere really. And I mean, that is such a feather in your cap and the people who work alongside you. She's brought in a math coach. You've brought in a director of English learning, equity and access, a cell director. So many changes have been made under with your work. And one of the things that I always say is that, you know, when you have a job, if you say that you have left it better than you found it, you've done really well, and you have left things here far better than you found it. So thank you for all you've done over the last 4 years. Truly.
Thank you. Truly. Thank
And that's
you.
coming from the woman who had it before you. Just
I had a master teacher, and that is for sure. And all of you, and certainly Dr. Kavanaugh and Susan. We have an amazing team, and nothing happens in these districts in isolation. So I've been really privileged to work with a wonderful group. Not once, but twice in Hopkinton. So, and I appreciate all of your support along the way, because those things couldn't happen without your commitment, help with funding and the budget and all those positions Carol mentioned. Those things don't happen by accident. So thank you. Thank you.
I will miss you here, but I am excited for you. And I am hoping to see you at the MASC conference in years going forward.
I'm sure I will be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Jen, I'm gonna miss you. I'm feeling like I just got back, Jen.
I know. But I'm thrilled for Hopkinton that they have you back here.
I'm thrilled for Plainville. They're very fortunate. They have no idea how good they have it yet. That's great. Congratulations. Yeah.
Well deserved.
We'll save your name tag in case you make a triumphant third return.
Thank you, Carol. You never know. Stranger things.
All right, and that moves us into the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. So this is the superintendent's report for June 9th, 2022. I know that sometimes you like to see where the COVID numbers are. And yesterday, Wednesday, is the day that we always report them to DESE, and you will be very thrilled to see that we had only 24 cases in that 1 week. You'll remember that we have had weeks where we had about 150 on that list. So the numbers are certainly going in the right direction. We're going to talk tonight a little bit about the Elmwood School project. We are in the place right now where we are going to be accepting proposals from designers, and that will happen on June 15th. And the designer needs to be approved by the MSBA, and our date with the MSBA is July 19th. And so that really puts us into a sort of an August kind of landing. I put this terrifically convoluted and crazy thing on the screen just so you can see the kind of work that's going to be upcoming. And I think that this is pretty illuminating. While you aren't going to be able to read a single word on there, which is okay, what you'll see on the next slide is this is what was done for the Marathon Elementary School. So when they were in feasibility and trying to figure out what kinds of things would we want to evaluate for that school, these are some of the things on the previous slide. So we'll look at things like cost above baseline, disruption to education during construction, what kinds of impacts on the neighbors the construction will have, depending upon where you put the school, what effect will it have on traffic. We have to look at town permitting, site acquisition and site planning, if it has any flexibility to accommodate future growth, should there be any, and we would all sit around hoping that there wouldn't be, but given the track record in Hopkinton, it could happen. The location and public safety, and then really that sort of long-range planning. What is the community's vision for this particular school that we are about to build? So when you looked at that previous page, the way all of those criteria are kind of evaluated, they're evaluated on that continuum from least advantageous to most advantageous. And so what you would be hoping for as you look at this is we would be choosing a site that had most of the dark greens.
So, sorry, Dr. David. So this is an example of what we did for Marathon in terms of where do we put the school? Not like what does the configuration of, like, where's the lunchroom or the, not the internal design, but more like where do we put it? Is this example?
Yes, and really there are some, programmatic things, as well that, you would want to be looking at. Something like disruption to education, right? So if you are, and maybe I should go a few slides ahead. So right now we have a project manager, and our project manager is Compass. And we'll soon be selecting a designer. And so what will happen next is Compass and the designer are going to help us decide, do we want to renovate, add, build new? If you do, how much of a green school do you want to have? The more green you add, the more money it costs, but are you going to make it up on the other end? Those are the decisions that you make. And then we'll be looking at grade levels. Is it going to be a 2-3 school or a 2-3-4 school? And they will actually help us with that work. Then we'll be looking at, the site that you want to build on. And what's interesting, I think, and this is what makes the Elmwood project different from the Marathon project, is that when you start to say, okay, we could have a 2-3-4 school, then you have to do much bigger campus planning. Because if you put 4th grade into this new project, now you're pulling the 4th grade out of Hopkins. When you pull the 4th grade out of Hopkins, you've got a great big school for the 5th grade, but if you're going to put another grade level in there, you don't have a very big school. So the question then becomes, would you move grades 5 and 6 to Hopkins and just leave it as a 5-6 kind of middle school? And there are districts that have a 5-6 middle school and a 7-8 middle school, so that they've really separated them, or they've got 2 individualized schools on the same campus. So you really look programmatically, you look developmentally and say, is that good for kids? Is that not good for kids? Because of the space constraints in Hopkins now, you wouldn't really be able to just take your 6th graders and plop them in there, because you won't have enough classrooms, given what the MSBA and our demographer says will happen in terms of enrollment. For you guys who are relative newcomers, they hear me say it all the time. We have one demographer who says it will be at about 4,750 kids, and another one that says it will be just under 5,000. So, if you think about where we are now, we have about 4,100 kids in our schools. So that's a lot of growth. But you still have 4 brand spanking new modular classrooms that we just attached to the Elmwood School. So if you moved out of Elmwood, those new modulars could go to Hopkins and they would look just like the modulars that we put on there. The modulars at Hopkins look exactly like the ones at Elmwood. So those are the kinds of decisions that we'll make. There's that kind of cascading, that kind of domino effect that will happen. So that makes this project very different. And you can see that, you know, we have those 4 questions that I've put here, and I think I've just articulated them pretty well. But if you look at something like question number 3, how will we maximize funding to ensure we get the most educationally sound physical plant? Like, that's going to become a huge question for the community, because at some point you have, I mean, even if what they're talking about now with this school and is looking at something anywhere between 85 million and 150 million, depending on decisions that you make, but that's before you get about 35% reimbursement through the MSBA. So people in town are going to have to make great big decisions about the money that they want to spend and what will that product look like. And then in number 4, we have to make sure that all of those grade level configurations, if you put 5th graders and 6th graders together at grades 2, 3, and 4, are these kinds of configurations going to be good for kids developmentally, academically, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally? And those will be the questions that the whole community wrestles with. So the community late in the summertime, sometime after July 19th, when our designer is approved, people should start looking for that engagement. And we don't want people to think that we'll talk about this in August and then we'll be done with it. There will be lots and lots of time, public forums, presentation of data, so people will really have a lot of time to exercise their voices, to weigh in, to digest the information, because it's a huge community decision.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So when, I've already asked this at the meeting, but I figure other people may also be confused. When I think of buildings and creating buildings and designing buildings, I think of architects, right? And so what is a designer, like what is their primary job in a project like this?
So do you want to answer that question, Susan? Because you worked so closely with DRA last time.
So the designer also, you know, they are architects, they're engineers, they're all encompassing, if you will. But the designer in the beginning, what they will be doing really is some of this, you know, what is the site? What does the community want in a school? What are the grade level configurations? And they put together all this analysis and data, and they will bring it to the community to weigh in. Then they start to do a test fit. So if they go through that matrix and they decide that a school would fit best on this location, then they start architecturally and engineering doing test fits on that property, just kind of the core of the building. Bring that back, have discussions, this is what it would look like, these are the traffic patterns, you know, et cetera. Then you take that test fit and you keep building. So you keep getting down further and further into those layers, and again, both architecture, engineering, and you start building into what is that test fit. What's on the first floor, what's on the second floor, where are your access points, so.
Okay, thank
They
you.
start at a very high level and keep drilling down, really until you have construction documents and plans.
Thank you.
Can I
That's
ask
their
a
job.
follow-on to that? So because this is an MSBA project, do they start with an assumption that we'll pick from a set of pre-designed schools that are sort of in the portfolio, or does it start with kind of a blank piece of paper?
It does start with a blank piece of paper. However, you can say to your designer and your OPM, we're okay with some of, you know, kind of those
Standard.
schools that have already been developed. But a lot of that will fall into place depending on what your site is and depending on your grade configuration. So you may not be able to use one of those canned schools, if you will, for Hopkinton.
Yeah.
So it's not prescribed for us to use either approach.
Thank you.
Is the canned approach less expensive? Is that why people go that way, or is that?
So it's a model school, and I apologize, I couldn't come up with that name. A model school it's to a degree, some of it has already been designed for
Yeah.
you. So they do ask when schools go through an MSBA project, they ask whether or not they would like your school to become a model school for the MSBA. So to a degree, some of those plans are really kind of handed over for free. So how much that saves you, I don't know, because I don't know the detail of how detailed those plans are.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just one other thing real quick, I know you want to move on, but I think as I'm listening to you talk, it's important for folks to know that if we're going to use MSBA money, we can build the school for the students we have, not for what we anticipate we will have in 10 years or 5 years. Is that correct?
So they've actually changed that a little bit.
Yay.
Yes.
All right.
They actually told Medfield they changed it because of Hopkinton. They did.
All right,
Marathon.
fantastic. This is great news. All right.
And they've also hired a demographer. Like, I don't think that they had that in the earlier go-round. So their demographer is the one who predicts that we would be up closer to 5,000 kids. And, they use multiple criteria, not just cohort survival. So it's really kind of amazing that they'll actually let us build for the kids that they believe are coming to Hopkinton now.
And how far out do they project when is it like a 5-year
The
plan?
last date on there is 2030, 31. So
Great.
they went out a whole decade.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
All right.
Because people know that while we were building Marathon, we
Right.
looked around and said we need to add 4 classrooms. And then very soon we'll be breaking ground to put another 4 classrooms on.
Which is
So-
exactly what I was thinking when I went
Yeah.
there. So I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, I did also want to talk a little bit about school safety. Tuesday morning of this week, the Hopkinton Police Department and Fire Department came in and did some really nice presentations for our faculty on safety protocols. They were pretty amazing when they came in. You can see this picture of them in the auditorium, which I snapped after folks left. But we had our police chief, we had one of the detectives, the lieutenant, the dispatcher, 2 school resource officers, the fire chief, and the fire deputy. And they really did talk about what would happen in the event of an intruder and how they go into the building and what the expectations are for teachers and paraprofessionals and administrators. The fire department talked about sort of setting up like sort of this kind of medic outside, and they would invite ambulances from other communities that would serve as backup. I think when people left there, they felt like there was a really solid plan in place in Hopkinton. So if there are things that we think people need to know, there are several layers of safety. So the fire, police, head nurse, youth and family services, public health official, and the school officials all get together in what's known as the School Safety Task Force. We probably do that 4 or 5 times a year. The fire chief helps us set up an incident command center. So in the event that something is happening, everybody has a role and responsibility. So somebody would be just to push out information, so everybody knows what they're doing. Each building has its own crisis response team, and there are key players from that building, whose job is to we do tabletop drills. So there are some people who are there to provide different kinds of support, some people who are there to be communicators, some people who are there to lead children in particular directions. Anyway, that's what your crisis response team would do. We have a group of people who are able to conduct threat assessments, so that if we think that there is a student who is suffering in any way, we can conduct a threat assessment, and then obviously we do ALICE training. And even though ALICE has that acronym in a linear way, so lockdown is, for example, the second letter, and evacuate is the last one, it doesn't mean that you follow that in any particular order. If you feel like evacuation is the smartest way to go, then teachers have the ability to tell their kids, we're leaving this classroom, we are evacuating right now. Those drills will come back next year. What we've been doing is kind of having modified drills through COVID. Some of the people will just read scripts in classroom. Sometimes we practice evacuation, but it's not necessarily a formal ALICE drill. The police have shared with us that their response time is estimated to be about 3 minutes from the station to any one of our buildings. Current training that they have indicates that even a single officer will enter a building, so it's not like they're sitting outside waiting for backup. One officer will go in the event of an active shooter, and their intent is to neutralize that threat. Our local police are prepared tactically to approach all kinds of threats. We have cameras throughout our buildings, and those cameras, even though Kids think that they are just there for disciplinary reasons. Not true. You can actually access them from the police department and the fire department. Now, I don't want you to think the police officers are sitting there watching them all day, because they have literally thousands of cameras all over Hopkinton. But in the event that they need to be able to see inside our school before they ever leave the police department, they can start watching, and watch them even from the cruiser, which is pretty amazing. I've already talked a little bit about our fire department. They, as emergency first responders, would be setting up like a medic area, multiple ambulances from lots of different places. They can put several people into a single ambulance. They can call for life flight. Our staff IDs should be worn and visible at all times, especially for staff who travel from building to building, and our doors need to stay locked, both interior doors and exterior doors, and every one of our school buildings has double entry security. So, it's just really important, I think that, and I think they kept impressing this upon us, that you've got to do your part. You can't leave a door open. When you are coming in, you shouldn't allow anyone to tailgate. If you see that you have, someone who seems to be, downtrodden, not their same selves, if you see something, say something. Let people know that you've got, a friend who isn't feeling well or suffering or whatever, because we can always bring in that threat assessment team and really kind of estimate what's going on with that particular kid. But there are just loads of things that we can ask our faculty, staff, and students really to do to keep our buildings as safe as possible. So they were with us for about 40-45 minutes before people needed to start the school day, and I think it was a good meeting. Just another quick update. We are showing the film I'm Not Racist, Am I? That will be shown in the middle school auditorium tomorrow night. For people who wish, they can come at 5 o'clock, and there will be free pizza. Pizza is $5. Okay, and that's all I have for you.
Questions?
I already asked a bunch of questions.
No, I'm Not a Racist should be very good. The producer of the film will be available for Q&A after the viewing. So I think the three of us have seen it a couple of times now, and it's really good.
Thank you for providing all of that, but I know there are particularly people in the community who wanted to hear a little bit more in depth about the security. It's a little chilling to sit and listen to try to imagine, but I do appreciate that. Then, if there are no questions, I will move into the school committee chair report. And I'm going to ask if you could share my year-end report. I sent it to you just before I came here. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting, if you're able to get it. Oh, there you did. Thank you. So Amanda started this last year of doing a chair report at the end of the year, just to kind of look at what the past year has done and kind of then be able to use that to look forward to see kind of not only what we've done, but kind of some of the things that we want to consider for next year. So I will wait 1 minute to see if I can.
It's very strange how sometimes, there we go.
There we go. Okay, can you move it to the next?
Yes.
The next one. So I wanted to start, and I know in part I like this from Amanda's report last year, but pulling the data of who our students are as a whole and looking at what diversity we have in our school. And I also wanted to look at how our diversity has shifted over the past 5 years. And I think, we know that we've been growing and more diverse and trying to celebrate that and looking at different things that we've considered, like we looked at the calendar last year and looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's been something that we've been working on, not just through Dr. Kavanaugh's goals, but as a district for many years now. But really, when you look at how our district is growing in this way, I think it's nice to see and nice to celebrate, but also to think about considerations if we want to do any diversity, equity, and inclusion training as a school committee, any anti-bias, anti-racism training, things that we might be able to use in our lens when we're looking at policy and budget and things going forward. Not something we need to decide tonight, but just something to have in mind. And then the next one is a little bit continued on some of the diversity that we have in our district, and looking at, I know that this has been something that's been talked about over the past 2 years with the pandemic in particular, but it's certainly not new, is our socioeconomic diversity also has shifted. We went from 3.9% economically disadvantaged students in 2017 to 7.9% was reported to DESE this year. And wanting to consider, are there any policy or budgetary implications for supporting the population that we want to consider? Things, do we want to look at, say, field trips? Do we want to look at, other policies and ways that we, as a school committee, can support our students in that way? So that's, if you, to the next one. Just in terms of nuts and bolts, we had 31 public sessions and 26 executive sessions between when we reorganized last year and just before we reorganized this year. Just for people at home and for people who maybe weren't following us from before the pandemic, that is really abnormal. It used to be every couple of months we'd have some executive sessions, but also because we did a lot of negotiating in this past year. We negotiated 3-year contracts for 4 separate bargaining units for the teachers, the custodians, the cafeterias, and the nurses. And that took a lot of time with executive sessions and all kinds of things related to the pandemic that we had to negotiate separately. So with that, I also did call out here, and I was going to give this to Georgette to hopefully put up on the website if people wanted to look at some of the data more in depth. But we did have a listening series last year that was 8 sessions long. We had talked about doing another one this summer and kind of coming up with topics for that as well. We also did some open office hours. We did, I think, 1 in person, and then we did a couple by Zoom as well. Highlights from the school committee in the past year in no particular order. We were the first state to lift, the first in the state to lift the mask mandate at the high school for a trial in November of 2021. That brought all sorts of interesting media looking at us and lots of opinions across the board. And we did kind of, we talked about masking a lot really between then and March when we kind of moved forward with that. And then in terms of the next item is the niche hop. I think most people here are aware, but I don't know, people at home may not be aware of our 18 to 22-year-old business that is run out of the White House. This has been a goal that the district has been working on, and it launched finally. They're getting ready to open up their own storefront, so I am excited for that. The budget, which is obviously one of the biggest things we do. Our budget advisory group met 8 times between the fall and when we got things done into the town in February. We had about $55.5 million operating budget for FY23 for the schools. We also had about $1.6 million in our capital plan, which included the high school auditorium lighting repairs, the district-wide IDF switches, the wetlands order of conditions that had been put off for a few years, the air handling units replacement, and then the additional funding for Marathon, so that was a big deal. And then the creation of the Special Ed Reserve Fund. Then in terms of special education data, just wanted to call out we had 550 students on IEPs, 164 students on 504s, and then 31 students who are placed in out-of-district settings. And continued just highlights of kind of some of what our students are doing. I think this is just an interesting piece. Our high school was rated number 11 by U.S. News and World Report, which is excellent for a public high school since some of the others are charters and not regular, just district public schools like ours. And our district actually was ranked overall as number 1 in the state by niche back in February. But advanced coursework, we had our 11 and 12 grade students, there are 617 of them. 514 took advanced courses, which is about 83.3%, and that just means that they took at least one. 52.4% of our students with disabilities completed advanced courses, and 57.5% with high needs. I like to underscore this, I have said this before, but Hopkinton, and I get really into the deep dive when I'm looking at the DESE data, we have one of, by far, the highest rate of AP tests taken, and when we were talking about some of the advanced learning, I was looking at what the high school was doing, and it's really impressive when you look at our data, not just because it's impressive that we had 1,087 AP exams taken, but the only other districts in the state with more are larger districts, and it was Lexington, Newton, Worcester, and Boston. They have, obviously, in Worcester and Boston, many more students than we do. But the districts that are more comparably sized, like Wellesley, they administered 837. Westboro administered 543, comparable to we gave over 1,000. So I think we're really offering a lot of nice advancement in our high school. Lots of policy review. I have another slide on that specifically, so I won't go too deep in that. But the bullying prevention and intervention plan, that required a whole subcommittee that we then passed a few weeks ago. Then we revised the school calendar to reflect more inclusive holidays, and we had some really nice detailed presentations. This isn't for sure all of them, but you had brought in just a group of lovely people to do the out-of-district special education costs with Dr. Zaleski, the dyslexia folks from the district that came in, as well as the advanced learners, which I think really helped increase at least my understanding of some of the issues and hopefully others as well. Fee waivers, and this to me I was thinking with the lens of the increased socioeconomic diversity that we have. We had 57 applications for fee waivers in 21-22, 4 were denied and 3 were approved at 50%, and the other 50 were approved at 100%. It's possible we could look to consider in the coming year if we want to adjust what the threshold for fee waivers and reductions are, and that's something we could potentially discuss as we're going into budget, how that obviously would work. Policies, I won't read through all of them, but we intentionally paused some of the policy review we were doing when we were just a committee of 3, because we felt like having the committee of 5 would be important to really represent the community as best we could. We did get through a fair number of policies. Some policies we opened and we discussed, but we didn't ultimately end up concluding on for a number of different reasons, one of which was time after we had the 3 people. So in terms of addressing growth, we've talked about that a lot at length, but I felt like it was nice to have a slide just because we continue to talk about it. And then, the campus planning study that we had talked about doing for last year got moved up to this coming year, and it will hopefully give us some answers to things we need to know, not just for the Elmwood School replacement, but for the entire district. It's an exciting time to be able to imagine and create what we want to see in the years ahead for the schools. So that just brings down to parting thoughts. Again, rated the #1 public school district in Massachusetts by niche. I think we've had a lot of kind of ups and downs this year. It's nice to focus on there were a lot of really good things that actually happened in spite of some challenges we had with the pandemic. The summer 2022, I was able to secure Tony Bent to work with us as a consultant. I know, thank you for everybody for getting back to me so that we could secure the date to work on our goals and priorities for the coming year, and then really to use that work to inform kind of if there are policies that are related to what comes out of that, if there are budgetary considerations, that we've got that right up front this summer and can use that to guide our coming year. And then capital considerations always going on. I know we'll be looking at enrollment projections on an ongoing basis, and then the campus planning study again, and hopefully some time for parking and traffic.
I just want to say, I think this is going to be my first year on the committee this coming year that we won't be doing wetland order of conditions in the capital plan. So I'm really excited. That was one of our major accomplishments, getting wetland order of conditions funded.
We'll be putting that out to bid shortly and hope to have that installed, if you will, prior to, I think it's October.
Oh, thank goodness.
Feels like it was a while before any of us even came on. It was being talked about.
Oh, yeah. It's been there for a long time.
You're gonna have cake once it's installed.
In the wetlands.
In the wetlands with the turtles. Yeah.
So for whatever it's worth, I feel like this is sort of like the division here. So we weren't here last year, so you all over here, that was an enormous amount of time, energy, and effort from all of you. And I feel like folks in the community hopefully recognize how much you sacrificed over the last year with all the things you listed out, the massive amounts of communication about unmasking in November, and then, the decisions that went back into it over the course of the next couple of months through March. You did an enormous amount of work, everybody did, and as someone who was just sitting home watching the meetings at that point, I was so grateful to have you all here doing what you were doing. And obviously, you just compiled an amazing list of accomplishments over the
I
course
don't
of
even
the year.
think that's gonna be all the stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
you're probably
it's not everything we did, but I thought if I did an entire report, it would put people to sleep, so.
I know, but I hope that you get the accolades for the amount of work and time and like sheer passion and love that you guys put into your work. It was very, very clear to me with my many emails.
Which were all appreciated.
Always lovely to me in response. And so, we saw it, everybody saw it. And I want to thank you all because we're at a good place right now. And it's not because of
Right,
me
this
and
side of the
Jen.
table. We'll work on it for this year.
And you guys, we won't talk about you guys bad, but like you guys put in so much work, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that everybody understands in this community how like you worked way more than I assume you anticipated when you took the job, And that goes for Carol and Jen too, and Susan, everybody on this side of the table. The amount of work that you all put into this school system.
I would say it's a great team that we've had in terms of the administrators, the teachers, everybody really has worked so hard, and I know continues to work so hard.
Right.
It's a labor of love. I also feel like the community, by and large, has been really supportive, and I still talk with people that bring up, things that happened, that they're appreciative that the school committee continued, to move forward with things, but also so excited for both of you to be here and all that you guys bring. Because
We haven't done anything yet.
but,
No, we don't
well,
have-
yeah,
we're
but
not
we
on
know
the
you
list.
will.
We abstained.
I know.
Yeah.
And our students too. Like,
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And the students, and hopefully next year's year will be much more normal and typical for what a high school year
You
will
won't
be.
have to bring us questionnaires every meeting.
You never know with all the campus planning and design. I just want to say I think it was a great recap. Thank you so much for doing that. And Nancy and I had talked about sort of getting together and coming up with a straw design for a year-end review so that we can
great idea.
continue this. It's really great to be able to look at the data. I mean, yes, we worked hard, but I really like to look at the data. I'm that person. I'm always like, oh, opportunities for greater achievement.
Right.
So I see in the numbers and in some of the information where we can, when we get together this summer, talk about like going further, or doing more, and it's when you sit back and put something like this year in review together, I think it helps. It helps you evaluate opportunities and not just accomplishments, but really more opportunities too. So it seems to be a useful tool. I don't know how you felt doing it.
I think it's wonderful. Like
Yeah.
we just got like the very high level
Right. It
overview
was like the
of
Cliff
all.
Notes,
Yeah.
I felt like it was useful to look back through and to think, okay, this was an area where we wanted to pick up and take to the next level, and that we were doing some of this work, and that was there's a larger piece that we need to get to, and kind of this is the work that that in the exciting stuff, all the stuff that we did through the pandemic was not the stuff that I think anybody said, oh, I can't wait to have a public health crisis.
No.
But to be able to get in and think about the district over the the next 10 years, when I think about that campus planning study and the ability to plan not just for the spatial needs that we need, but what programmatically we want to see, and really I think it's an exciting time coming up to be on the school committee. So
And I think, like you said, those are the Cliff Notes versions, and I think of like other specific things as accomplishments. Like we had, the discussions, the forums, but then after the forums, we took that advice and Carol took some of that feedback, and we ended up with like a social worker at the school to help people based on the discussions that we had with parents, right? So those are the little accomplishments, right? The places where we got the feedback, we parsed it, and we were able to make something better at the schools for people. So I think
100%.
that's also awesome.
then I will go back into my flip screens, go back to the agenda. The only other couple of things I had on my report were the payroll warrant S22025 has been approved. Operating warrants 22049, 22050, 22051, 22052, 22053, and 22054 have been approved, and they are in the packet. I did go out of order because I didn't want to have to flip back and forth, so I already did the year-end report. And then on May 26, 2022, executive session minutes for September 2nd, 2021, October 7th, 2021, October 21st, 2021, December 2nd, 2021, December 16th, 2021, January 4th, 2022, January 6th, 2022, February 15th, 2022, February 17th, 2022, March 17th, 2022, and April 28th, 2022 were approved but were not released because the reasons for the executive session still exist. And then May 5th, 2022 was approved to release with some redactions. And just to understand why I'm reading this lengthy list aloud is it's actually just a requirement that we put it into the record that those executive session minutes have been approved, so to bring us into compliance. Are there liaison reports that people have? Okay, you have one liaison report. CPAC had an end of the year outing for parents and caregivers and reorganized for the coming year, and they actually have elected a full slate of officers. Many of the positions are co-chairs, and looks like they've got a really great active group to take the next year with CPAC, so it is exciting.
That's fabulous.
And
That's a good credit to Jen Halliday.
I was just going to say extra credit to Jen Halliday, who carried this through these unusual pandemic years and held CPAC together to get to this point where they can fill the positions. So,
Just a reminder that the Pride Parade is on the 19th
Yeah.
around the Loop Road. So anybody who's interested in that, it will be happening then.
and we do have space for the school committee to march. I am planning on being there. I don't know. I know you guys also are.
I know, I'm
Having
hoping
two
to-
hats?
I'm a little iffy. We've got some Father's Day plans that may put a wrench in the works, but
that's-
I might be come screaming in at the end.
That's
so,
okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts if you're going to walk with the school committee, if you're going to walk with the Freedom Team, or?
Well, yesterday I was like, I don't, because we had a meeting, and I was like, I don't know how many school committee members, so I'll just hold like a few signs, or maybe I'll like tape them to me, but I'm happy to hear that. I won't have to do that.
Maybe we could walk closely
Yeah.
if we could request to be right with
Yeah,
the
we're
Freedom
supposed to be
Team.
at the front of the parade.
Yeah.
They made us a special sign.
I plan to be there, so.
Excellent.
I'll walk with the school,
Yeah, that's awesome.
just like last year.
It was a great experience last year,
Yeah.
and I imagine it seems like it's grown a little bit.
Yeah.
I have not picked up my shirt yet.
So remember to take water. It was really hot.
I'm actually curious if the Pride Parade has made its way through the PR channels at the high school.
It was in the memo this week. I saw that in the student memo. Other than that, I haven't heard too much about it, and I'm not sure what the numbers are on it. I know last year, the class of 2023 sent an ice cream truck over as a way to kind of make it. Yeah.
Hey, that gets people
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, ice cream.
Especially if it's 90 degrees, it's like, yeah.
I think they're having similar things this year. They're gonna have like food trucks and people have tables and stuff like that. So you'll get information on the Freedom Team and what Pride and whatever. Yeah.
Do you guys know if there are groups of students participating at the Diversity Club or the GSA or anything?
I'm certain that Freya has
Yeah.
talked to all of those people. She's
It was-
an excellent program manager.
Yes, she is. Okay, so anything else on before I jump out of liaison roles?
No, that was it. Just what's interesting too is Pride Day is also Juneteenth. So for anybody who, wants to know about that as well. So.
That's great. And will the Freedom Team have information on Juneteenth as well?
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
gonna be like a we're gonna have a
Yeah.
speaker, Al Green, who is a minister, but he was an immigrant, came here because he was an asylum seeker from I want to say Jamaica, where they have laws against LGBTQ folks. So So he came here as asylum, and now he is a minister that helps LGBTQ kids in his community. We talked to him, and he is amazing. He's incredible. So he'll be a keynote speaker, so he'll be able to like kind of connect Pride and Juneteenth, and I'm really excited to hear him speak.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's
That
amazing.
is really, yeah. All right. So scheduling, in terms of we wanted to look at the summer again before we pass the school committee schedule for the entire year. So what I was proposing, I just sent this as an email just because I thought it would be easier if you guys looked at it ahead of time. But I would propose that we keep June 23rd, which is our next meeting, and then we have the July 16th training and retreat with Tony Bent, and then July 21. But the August meetings, it seems like there are, both of the two August meetings that are listed, multiple people can't go to. And then when I looked at other Thursdays, it's difficult to find a Thursday. So I think when I blocked out when people's vacations were, there's a small window for the beginning part of August where it has to be either the 8th or the 9th if we want to have everybody there. I prefer the Monday. I don't know why, but I don't know if other people prefer Tuesday. I can make Tuesday work.
Monday would be better for me.
Yeah, either
Okay.
works for me.
Either works for me.
All right, so let's do Monday, August 8th, and then kind of on the other side, I was looking at the same constraints with wanting to get it into that week where school starts. We could do either Monday, August 22nd, or the 23rd.
Either day is fine.
Okay.
I won't be available.
You won't be, somehow I missed you, I'm sorry. Or when are you,
It's that week that I'm gone.
you're gone that whole week, okay, so then, and I'm gone the week before.
It's okay. I
Okay,
miss
all right,
one
let's-
meeting if
let's-
4 people
okay.
can make it.
We'll put it in Monday, the 22nd, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you. We'll miss you, Leah, but you'll be on the beach and everything, or wherever you're
Yeah.
going, it'll be okay.
Disney cruise.
Oh, even better.
Oh,
Oh, it's something good.
maybe we should come and have the meeting on your
On the
vacation.
cruise. There you go.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the proposed 22-23 meeting calendar as amended with the ones I just mentioned?
I'll move to approve it.
Thank you. So Holly,
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that will be, and it is possible that we will have to make other changes along the way. Customarily, we vote on it, but it's not like anything bad happens if we have to change something, so.
So did you intentionally jump over the other agenda items?
I did not.
The new business?
I appreciate you bringing that back. I did not intend to jump over this. All right, so new business item A is the vote to ratify the HTA Unit C contract. I was talking way too long, too. Kick me under the table
I
next
didn't
time.
want to interrupt the, I seemed on a roll there.
So we've concluded negotiations with the nurses, and they have ratified this contract, and so tonight, it would be great if you would also approve it. I'll give you just a couple of the highlights. The Teachers Association has established a sick bank when they negotiated with us. What's unusual in Hopkinton is we have one set of protocols around sick days for people who were hired before 2013, and people who are hired after 2013 will now qualify for the sick bank. The same will be true for the nurses. They will have some additional bereavement days. So what typically happens is you have them for kind of immediate family members, but every once in a while you have a person who's very close to you but doesn't kind of qualify under that umbrella, and so they'll have a couple of additional bereavement days if they have someone who does not kind of fall inside the current language. And then they will be able to carry a single personal day if they haven't used both of them from 1 year to another, never having more than 3 on the books at a single time. And then I think the big piece is, of course, remuneration. So we have added steps, in some cases, step 13, 14, 15, in some cases, only 14 and 15, depending where the last step was. And so they will be getting, if you're standing on a step where you have a raise, which everyone will, so everyone will get a step raise. And everyone will also get a cost of living raise. In the first year of the contract, it's 4%, and then in the last 2 years of the contract, it's 3% for the next 2 years. So I think what's nice is that this year, if we looked at parity across districts, and we thought some of our nurses were being a little bit underpaid if you looked at us next to other districts. So some of them will be getting a raise as high as 7%, which I think will get us to that external parity that we hoped for, because we really value our nurses and we want to make sure that they are paid equitably.
And that we retain them.
And that we retain them. It would be heartbroken if they went anywhere except to retirement.
So just, once again, I know the answer to this, but I think our students may be new to the idea of steps and lanes. So I was wondering if maybe we could just clarify what a lane is and what a step is, so that they
Surely.
can parse the discussion better.
So for each year of service, a person moves what we would call a step on a salary schedule. So for your first year, let's imagine you were making $50,000. The next year, you'd go down a step and make $52,500, for example. But we also have lanes, and that's based on degree status. So for teachers, there's lots of lanes. It's a bachelor's degree lane, 15 credits beyond your bachelor's, a master's degree, and you continue to move across lanes. The nurses have only 2 for bachelor's and master's degree. And then each year we have a cost of living raise that's pretty much applied to the entire salary schedule. So across all of the lanes and all of the steps, we would add a percentage. And for this year, it will be 4, 3, and 3. There are 2 other votes that we would need for you to take tonight, and those are just not inside this contract, but also memoranda of agreements. One of them is a single-time COVID healthcare bonus, and that would be paid to all of the nurses who worked during the 21-22 school year through the pandemic, and it's a single payment of $2,000 paid before June 30th. And then the second letter memorandum of agreement is an interesting one. What Desi has said to us is that next year there should not really be any COVID issues in our school. So there shouldn't be contact tracing. It would be, you're not going to have to report your case counts like we did tonight to Desi. But the nurses said, we want to really make sure that that's true, because as they've lived through the last school year, and I absolutely respect this, the rules kept changing. You know, sometimes they were doing contact tracing. They were doing contact tracing for us on Thanksgiving morning, for example, because if kids had been close contacts on Tuesday or Wednesday and someone had tested positive, they were calling families on Thursday morning of Thanksgiving. And it was so much work. So even though we don't believe we're going to need to ever exercise this memorandum of agreement, in the event that we ever have to go back to contact tracing or do those kinds of things that require extra work pay, so teachers, nurses are working outside their regular school day, they'll be paid at 1.5 times their hourly rate for that work. So you really kind of have 3 things to vote on.
3 things under the contract.
One motion.
So I think we need 3 separate motions. Why don't we do the first one just in the order that Carol presented them, of the Unit C 3-year contract for 2022 to 25.
I'll move to approve the contract.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Jen, a second by Holly. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. And so that is approved with great appreciation for our nurses for working with us to negotiate that. The second one we'll look for a motion on is for the pandemic healthcare bonus.
I move that we approve the pandemic healthcare bonus
Great.
for the nurses, and it is well deserved.
Very well deserved. They did a lot that was outside of what would have been expected.
I second.
So motion by Leah and a second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and it passes. And then the final one is the motion to approve the side letter related to the COVID case management.
I'll move to approve that one.
Okay. Motion by Jen. Is there a second by Holly? All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. And thank you to the nurses. So,
And thank you guys for negotiating on our behalf.
okay. Moves us into the bullying report for this year.
Okay. So I did put this information up on a slide. annually, we are required to let the community know about how many bullying reports were filed and how many of those resulted in findings of bullying. So at the Marathon Elementary School, 2 reports of bullying were filed. One was a finding of bullying, one was not a finding of bullying. At Elmwood, there were 3 reports. One was a finding, one was not a finding, and currently there is 1 pending. So you don't have the results for that one. At Hopkins, there were 4 reports, 2 findings, 2 no findings, and I do believe that there was another report made today, so that number will actually go up for the 21-22 school year. The middle school had 5 reports with 2 findings and 3 no findings, and one was a combined report, and I can tell you why that happened. It happened because it took place on a school bus where there were both middle school and high school aged kids. So that one report ended being a no finding. So essentially at the high school in and of itself, there were no bullying reports filed this year. And I know that one of the committee members had said, can you kind of give us an idea of when this sort of thing is happening and why it's happening, why there might be some kind of imbalance of power? I can tell you that if you went through the folder where these reports are, many of them are things that happen on school buses. And so what we are seeing is that kids' behavior during unstructured time and really unmonitored time it's challenged. And so, our bus drivers are not supposed to be disciplinarians. We will repeatedly tell them that your job is to concentrate on driving that school bus. So really we have kids who's, really only, I guess, monitoring on the bus is if the bus driver pulls the bus over and asks them all to get back in their seats or quiet down or those kinds of things. So school buses are a place where, we do see that kind of, and a lot of times it's happening because of some kind of social inequity. And in those moments of social inequity, we are seeing less physical, but certainly a lot of verbal harm from one student to another. We do have some in-person racially motivated bullying and harassment, and students we are finding are using a lot of racial, sexualized, and homophobic slurs and swearing. And this is actually happening at very young ages. So the other day, Mrs. Bolello and I had a very long conversation on our mutual rides into school, and she was talking about some of the things that kids are seeing on YouTube and TikTok, and they are using words that are, all kinds of slurs, swear words, things that you would imagine that kids that age shouldn't be hearing, but because they have access to social media, they are using that language, and in some cases they are very aware of what the language means, and in some cases they're not so aware. But, if Jen was aware and I wasn't aware, it doesn't take me very long to access my friend who can help me better understand that. And so we really are seeing things, I think, from 9 and 10-year-olds that we should not be seeing, for sure. And then, of course, TikTok and that kind of social media, students are repeatedly mocking one another in that TikTok medium. And again, it's racial, it's sexualized, it's homophobic, it's a lot of those things that are happening.
Do we have specific metrics that we use to determine whether it's a case of bullying or not a case of bullying? Like, how do we differentiate between, you say, one finding, one no finding, and how is that data collected?
Sure. It's really a matter of Mass General Law. It's outlined in the law what constitutes bullying.
Yeah.
So typically you see things like an imbalance of power, and typically you see that it's happened over a period of time.
Right.
So those are kind of the criteria that you would be looking for as you conduct a bullying investigation. And power is interesting. So if you have 8 kids and 1 kid, typically, power lies with the larger group. Or sometimes it's just a matter of social capital. Or sometimes kids belong to a protected class, which is, when bullying even infringes upon like civil rights violations. So there are lots of moving parts. Chris Ocampo, who's one of our assistant principals at the middle school, just did a really nice job of taking lots of the district's documents and a lot of our procedures, and he put them all together. So everything is there with a link, so that we're pretty sure that across, from Marathon to the high school, we've got the same set of protocols. One thing that I think is very interesting, though, if you had Mr. Bishop and you had Mrs. DeBow sitting before you now, Mrs. DeBow would say, very often parents will think that this is bullying, but our littles don't really even know sometimes what they're saying, or what they're doing. So at Marathon, they would go to sort of an educational model, like how are we going to teach kids, the behaviors that we want them to have. And that doesn't mean that there aren't findings, because you can see from that slide that there are. But by the time you get kids into our middle school and high school, developmentally, you believe there's a much greater awareness that they know exactly sort of what they're doing. And that's really unfortunate.
Do we only report things that are officially filed with DESE?
So the way
I
a
know
bullying
there's a
report,
very formal process for filing for a bullying incident. So do we only report the things that are officially filed by like a parent, or are those things filed by teachers or witnesses or?
yes, anyone can file a bullying report.
Right.
So I, as the superintendent, could do it. A parent could do it. A student could do it. And we have to remember that bullies aren't just limited to students.
Right,
So
right.
if you look at the law, it will say everybody could be cafeteria workers, bus drivers, assistant principals. Anyone could qualify for that. So if a parent calls and says to Jen, Mrs. Parson, I think my child's being bullied, you don't have to go online and fill out that report. I mean, at that point, Mrs. Parson would say, okay, so if you really believe that, and this is the definition of bullying, I'm going to launch a bullying investigation at this point in time. Sometimes I think if you have a conversation with the parent, you explain what is and what isn't bullying. Like kids being mean to each other for a couple of days at recess, it's probably just kids being mean to each other.
Right.
And there may not be any imbalance of power there. It's just unkindness.
Yeah. Particularly
but-
among young children, right? Yeah.
Yes, but when a parent asks, or a student says something, or a teacher says, then we absolutely launch a formal bullying investigation. And so what you see up there are the numbers that we've had this year.
Interesting. Because I would have guessed that these would be higher from just the like mental health aspect and the like post-pandemic social aspect. I would have thought that would be more instances of bullying.
Well, they are higher than
Higher
last.
than
I mean,
last year.
this is
There were
higher.
times-
Yeah,
some
but I
degree.
mean, like we're talking about 5 reports at the high school. That seems low for.
Well,
5
but-
at the middle
but
school.
Yeah.
Last year, for context, there were only 3 district-wide, I think.
Right.
And there was one finding of bullying. And I know last year was different because
Yeah. 'Cause-
for a chunk of the year, only half the kids were there. And it's
we weren't having as many kids in.
Right, but I don't know the year before. This seems like a significant jump in the number of reports.
Right.
And part of me hopes that a reason for that is that people are becoming more aware of how to file bullying reports and how to
Yes.
get them investigated.
Is that
But
very public knowledge for our like parents or people that feel like they're bullying?
I
being
think that
bullied?
it is,
Well, and I think we can continue to educate people, just that we know parents
Yeah.
in the community. But it also does feel like this year there has been an increase
Yeah.
in
And it makes
incidents that I'm
sense,
hearing
right?
about. Yeah,
You-
not just of bullying, but of unkindness and,
Yeah.
and behaviors
Kids
that.
are navigating some kind of uncharted territory in like a post-pandemic like collective trauma sort of sense, right? So
Right.
yeah. So I find this interesting, just from a mental health perspective.
But lower than you might think for
Yeah.
what's actually reported
Right.
So
as bullying.
I'm happy that the numbers are where they are because, like, to me, I would have expected like a huge jump.
Mr. Carter, who is the assistant principal at Hopkins, was investigating 2
Yeah.
reports today. So that number is really 6 at this point in time.
Okay.
so
Thank you.
another question. I know that we introduced a form that is more about racially motivated, like a different form, right?
It's the bias incident reporting
The bias, thank you.
form that we call BIRF.
Oh,
It's not a very
Yikes.
pleasant sounding name, but
Well, bias incidents are not pleasant, so it seems.
Do we have any idea of how many of those have been
That's a
filed
great question,
in the
yeah.
past year? Can we get that?
Yeah.
Can we get information?
I think that number would be very low right now. But the, QR codes are around and that kind of thing. I think I'd like to give it another year's go before we actually look at that data.
The reason I'm asking is because we've been making, a very clear distinction that bullying is one person or one group of people over time but that children may feel bullied who several different groups of people have been making comments and things like that towards them. So they feel bullied because they're still getting, all of this. And so that forum seemed like the answer to that, right? It's a different incident, but it's still a hard incident. And so I want to keep track and see what happens with it.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Like bullying could feel like you're being ostracized or othered rather than, right? Is that kind of what you're saying, or
Well,
no?
in Massachusetts law,
Yeah.
bullying is one person or one group of people
Right.
constantly
Yeah.
sort of on you, right?
Mhm.
But there are a lot of students who parents will say they're being bullied, who are getting that sort of negative feedback from multiple groups, but
Right.
maybe one time from each group,
Yeah.
right? So the student feels bullied,
Right.
but according to the law,
They're not being bullied,
they're not being
even though they're being like othered,
right.
right? Yeah.
Exactly, and so that's where this form comes in, and
Right.
this
And does
was,
that capture that kind of like othering?
it's a biased form, right? So
It is. So, imagine that a student experience is one of those slurs, just once, right? It's really a civil rights violation, not necessarily bullying. But the bias incident reporting form would kind of elicit that, and, and then it would go to one of the assistant principals who would work with the kids through that.
Okay.
Was that form rolled out beyond the high school?
High school and middle school.
High school and middle school.
Okay.
Have you guys ever heard of that form?
The bullying form?
The bias incident reporting form?
Not the
I
bias
have
incident.
not.
No,
So maybe we need
needs to
more
do
education.
advertising.
Education on that. Yeah.
Well, I can just add one thing, which I do think is important, is that our principals work really closely together. So when
Yeah.
these incidents arise, they're not taking things in isolation. They will call Carol, they will call me, they
Yeah.
will call upon each other. And there's been so much training of our administrators. Dr. Zaleski's done some of that
Yeah.
training through some of the kind of organic work of some of our administrators.
Yeah.
That I don't feel like anyone is working in a way that's at all less than very thoughtful and very
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to kind of move in the same direction in terms of how we categorize things, and also not just how we categorize things, but how we then provide support
Right.
for both kids who have been maybe a victim and kids who've actually been responsible for some of
Yeah.
these, whether it's labeled as something or whether it's just not acceptable.
Right.
So I think there's been a lot of collaboration.
I
on how to
agree.
best
I think
serve kids.
our schools, I mean, I have personally had to go through this process, and I found that everybody involved was extremely compassionate and gave my child a lot of support and I'm more interested in how these things are categorized and how we measure it, right? As a person that's very interested in numbers, and to make sure that I understand the investigative process and the metrics that go along with that and how we report it. And does DESE ever intervene? Is there, when we report these numbers, if we have particularly high numbers, does DESE ever come back and say like what's going on, or is it kind of just for information only?
They wouldn't come to us because these numbers, if you look at us comparatively across the state, our numbers are very, very low.
I'm certain of that.
But if you're a parent and you get the letter that says it was a finding or no finding,
yeah,
you can go to DESE and make an appeal. And what DESE will tell you is very often they don't change
yeah,
what the school district has decided about finding or no finding. But what they will do is they will look at the district's process.
okay,
Yeah, and they're very cautious about that.
Yeah.
We have had parents who will do that. So DESE takes all of the administrators' notes. They actually get to see everything,
yeah,
and then they will evaluate it.
yeah.
So that's
Okay.
actually happened to us twice.
That's interesting. I mean, of course, parents are going to be very protective of their children and want to see that information. So I appreciate all the information. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, then, since I jumped over a little bit there, we can go down to liaison roles for 2022 to 2023. I know we talked about it a little bit last week. Was hoping that tonight we could get an actual kind of get a slate going in terms of, and vote that, because some of these things do have ongoing meetings that are going up. I just gotta get this to
These are all the liaison roles. There's a bunch of them.
a little bigger for my old eyes.
What did I do? Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Sorry, they used to watch this. Make it bigger.
All right, so
It's very small.
gonna start down with the policy review working group, and I believe Amanda, you and Jen had both expressed interest in that. Is that accurate?
Yes, but I definitely, I mean, I think the three of you already have existing liaison rules too, so I wouldn't, if it's something you wanna continue to do, I don't wanna step on anybody's toes. If you wanna stay in it, I was just making a list of the stuff I thought was interesting.
I was gonna ask maybe if we each had like 2 or 3 things we were interested in, we could make sure
Yeah.
like everyone gets one thing they're interested in.
Yep.
If that would be.
Well, I mean, so time commitment for me in the morning has gone way. Like I can't. I'm now having to commute to work.
So you're not uninterested, however.
I'm not uninterested. There is one policy that I'm sure anybody who's been watching school committee knows I've been championing. As long as that policy is looked at and considered, I'm fine stepping back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
How
If you,
about you?
I'll happily take that on again.
About the policy
Yeah, I mean.
or any of the, I am one that would be interested in learning anything. I just like to learn.
Do you have a particular one that you definitely, because
Well-
I think Amanda's point is good, that everybody should have at least one thing that they're really enthusiastic that they,
Yeah, so I wanted to do HOP,
All right.
and I really am very
Yeah.
interested in HOP. But I would be, if there's anyone that people aren't particularly interested in, I could take that on just because.
there definitely will be more as we go through the list.
So for me, I want to stay on ESBC too.
And that makes so much sense for the continuity.
And I'm trying to decide if I should say campus planning committee too, because they're so tied to each other.
Yep.
That it might make sense for me to be on both.
And
Or
we
even
had,
an alternate on campus.
we had talked about potentially having 2 people do that anyway. Is that,
We
and
did
that's,
say that.
that's okay? So I know that both of you have expressed interest. Do you 2 want to take that on?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, the minutes review really is just the making sure that the executive session minutes get done. Is there somebody who,
I can do that. I know. I started it. I'll keep.
you're really good at it?
Review the one I just did, because I don't.
That one is probably going to be the best one all year.
I
that one right there.
doubt that very much.
I know that the Sustainable Green Committee chair is very excited to get a school committee
Yes.
liaison, so, and they're meeting Wednesdays, so anyone who's happy with that.
Is there somebody that has a particular interest in doing sustainable green?
I'm actually sort of interested in that.
Okay.
I'd like to do that. I don't know what they're doing. Do you know what they're doing yet? Are they active?
Yes,
They-
they have been more active this
Did they
year.
reboot?
Yes,
Yeah.
Amy Groves.
Oh,
was-
great.
Yeah.
Okay, the Irvine Tadaro
they're
committee
meeting Wednesday.
has not met in a long time, but I suspect that as we get into discussions about campus planning and potentially building another school, it is potential that site would be considered, and so they might be a little more active, so we should have somebody assigned and ready to do that if, in fact, that happens.
You can put me on that, and then I can kind of feed the ESBC campus planning folks the info.
So, and we do need a second ESBC, and am I right, you said,
Alternate, yeah.
did you say, or did I dream
did,
this?
yeah.
Yes,
I'd be
okay.
interested in, yeah.
To be the alternate for
Okay.
that. Okay, the Marathon Fund Committee is a lot of fun. Because it actually is, because they do just a lot of giving money away. It's money the town gets from the marathon that they're then able to appropriate through, they do scholarships, they help with different concrete things for things like, they'll sometimes purchase something for the post-prom, they'll sometimes purchase something for other events that are happening. I am happy to do that if nobody has passion for that, but I also, they typically meet Tuesday.
Okay.
Would you like-
I could do it, but I don't want to take it
Nope.
away from you.
Nope,
like
not at all.
The giving money
That's,
away to people.
it is, I put your name down. It's in pen now. So.
Oh gosh, that's
It
it.
was fun to hear all the Marathon Fun scholarship folks.
It is.
Last,
It is.
Last week, it was cool to see that, yeah. That's good.
Okay. So turf field, I have been doing that. It doesn't mean a whole lot. I'm happy to keep doing that unless somebody. It's the oversight of the existing turf fields that we have here, in terms of we vote for like when we needed to have the inseam fixed in the outfield. We had to get the people into that. So that's if somebody has a particular interest in that.
Do you want it off your plate? I'm happy to do it. I know you already have a lot of stuff on
Yeah,
your list, so
there you
if
go.
you want it off your plate, and it's, I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm
my
happy.
name on there, tell them to call me.
It is typically during the day, but you know what? I don't know why well, the reason it's difficult to move is because it has a lot of staff people.
Right.
Ah, okay.
It tends to be at like 10 o'clock on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah,
I'm out for that.
Okay.
that would, yeah. They usually
I
don't like
don't
us to
mind.
leave
Yeah,
during
that's
the day.
yeah. You know,
Like,
I don't understand.
Yeah, I know.
Why would work do
Just
that?
gonna step out for a minute and get a coffee on the way
I
back.
have the flexibility to do that.
Okay.
I'm gonna be writing my dissertation, so like I probably want to go talk about turf for a bit.
Oh, good. The youth commission. I feel like somebody said
I was
you wanted to keep with it,
attending,
right?
Yeah, I think I can attend them. They've been Mondays, so.
So it sounds like we did shake out for policy too.
But I think that'll be it for me.
Yes, you can-
ESBC two says substantial, and the campus planning is substantial, so then I'll add the youth commission, but I think that'll probably spot me off in terms of commitment.
Okay. We're getting to the end, so.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just, I'm
okay,
trying to
yep.
balance the
But
hours
but
that
we
it says
also
at the end
yes.
here.
The other thing is, and we did this last year, we did kind of a mid-year check-in where there were some people who had commitments that ended up being more or on different nights than were convenient for them. We can bring things back if you find whatever you've taken is more than you can keep up with, or you can ask somebody to cover if they're like as a week or something. You know, I mean, that's. I'm always happy if I'm able to. If somebody needs somebody
Yeah,
to step in. I would be interested in taking CPAC as a liaison. And also LPAC, because I did have that last year, but we just started, so I'd like to continue with that if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, we did HOP. We had discussed not having a liaison to the Freedom Team. We did Sustainable Green.
We haven't done planning board, appropriations, or select
Right.
board, capital improvement.
Town boards, we left them
Yep.
off.
Yep. So is there somebody that is interested in planning board? And
I would do planning. What night? Was it Tuesdays? Or Mondays? It doesn't matter. As long as it's night, I can do it.
it's evenings, and I think they're recorded by YouTube on HCAM, I feel like.
So planning board generally is, you look at the agenda,
Right.
and then
Yep.
you decide whether to show up based on
Yeah.
what's on the agenda.
Okay, and then the appropriations and select board, typically the chair does. If somebody has a particular passion, I'm happy to, just because those tie into the budget advisory group.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so some of the others we had discussed last time are not continuing on because either they're done or whatnot. I have, Jen, you said you'd do minutes review, right? That's the one I did. Oh, I wrote it down twice. Okay,
You can put me down twice.
twice. You can do twice as many
And
minutes.
policy. I think you did.
I did policy up here.
Oh, wait, there.
She's got that one on top.
I got that one. I wanted to make it really stand out.
I know.
It makes it look like I'm really contributing. Thanks, Vance.
Yeah, those are big, high impact. So, do you want me just to read through back again, or do people remember? Okay, so,
I
okay, so do we have a motion to accept the liaison roles for 2022 to 2023 as discussed?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second on that?
second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes, so those will, some of them, and I'll look through just to be sure, require that you get sworn in by the town clerk. ESBC,
Right.
I know is one of them, although Leah, I know you're already sworn in on that. Irvine Tadaro, you also have to be sworn in for,
I'll swear twice.
so.
Can you remind, do we need to reach out to the committees, or how are they gonna receive the,
So,
so should I reach out to?
yeah, you
chairs
can go
and-
ahead and reach out, and then any of us who did do a committee that we're stepping off of, if you wanna like make the introduction to, that would be
Okay, thank you.
fine. All right, so that brings us into the assistant superintendent search.
Okay, so what we are looking for is one of you to serve on a site visit committee, and that would be on Friday, the 17th of June, so a week from tomorrow. And you should probably plan on like a 9 to 3 kind of a day. Currently, we did some interviews yesterday. So there was a first round committee, and they interviewed 6 people and have put 3 people forward. Tomorrow, Susan, Dr. Zaleski, and I will interview those 3, and we're not sure if all 3 will move forward, if 2 will move forward, or if 1 will win our hearts. It's hard to know. But the following Friday, we would need someone to go on either 1, 2, or 3 site visits.
What's the date? I'm sorry.
17th.
June 17th.
I'm available to do that. I have flexibility during the day. If anybody else wants, is good.
Sadly, it's not my off Friday.
I would love to do it, but it'd be hard.
Yeah. See, writing dissertations has
Benefits.
benefits.
You've already found
Okay.
several things to
I'm just
take you away
distracting
from that.
myself.
That's.
Notice that I don't want to do it. Thank you.
Your graduation looms, Holly. It's right there.
Do you, I think we need a motion to approve Holly as the school committee member to serve on the search committee for the site visits.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Leah, second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Congratulations, Holly.
Thank you.
It's a fun process to go to the site and
I'm
to
very
talk with
interested
their site team and to work with the group, so.
in it. I want to learn as much as I can.
Great. That moves us into items by consensus. Although we are 24 minutes behind, I feel like we're not starting the year off.
Okay, as superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Leah,
I'll second.
second by Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and then we look for a motion to adjourn.
So
Yeah, you know you do
so
it.
moved.
Motion by Leah
I'll second
and a
it.
second by Jen. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned at 8:24. Thank you all, and have a good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And I don't know if you guys are planning, but you do not have to come over the summer, certainly, if you do not want to, but we are here if you would like to see us.
Okay.
You're also out of school at that point, I think, so.
You have
Otherwise,
a lot of info for us, right? Yeah.
No.
yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you in September then.
We look forward to being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your finals and everything.
Oh, yes.